Hi, we recently visited Lesvos, which truly is a birdwatcher's paradise. We were a little late for the peak of the spring migration, but we still managed to put together a great list with no fewer than 27 new species. While preparing for this trip, I came across quite a few videos about birding on Lesvos, and they were incredibly helpful. That inspired me to do something similar with my own photos. I thought it might be useful for other birders if I shared what you can still expect to see on this amazing birding island at the end of May. Hopefully it'll be helpful. And if not, I hope you enjoy the bird photos anyway. So, we landed at Mytilene Airport at the beginning of the afternoon, which gave us plenty of time for a road trip to Scala RSU on the west side of the island. On the way there, we passed the famous Caloni salt pans, a real hotspot for birdwatchers, and it paid off straight away. Besides the many flamingos, avocets, black-winged stilts and bee-eaters, we soon spotted our first lifer, a spur-winged lapwing. Unfortunately, it was quite far away, but what a fantastic bird! Within a few minutes we added two more lifers, an eastern olivaceous warbler and a Dalmatian pelican. What a start to day one! Some of the other great birds we came across included this stunning whiskered tern, white-winged tern, little tern, squacco heron, ruddy shelduck, little ringed plover, little stint, wood sandpiper, the locally common crested lark and corn bunting, and this beautiful black stork as well. After that, we continued our journey to Scala RSU. We made a few stops along the way and soon came across our first eastern black-eared wheatear. It's a fairly common bird here, but a new species for me. We also spotted our first western rock nuthatches, bringing the tally to 5 new species on day 1 alone. That gives you an idea of just how incredible this island is for birding. Oh, and how about this beautiful laughing dove? We spent the first 3 days in Scala RSU, a laid-back village and the perfect base for exploring the western part of the island. This area is drier and rockier than the rest of Lesvos, which means you can find a number of species here that are harder to see elsewhere on the island. On day 2, we decided to do a bit of exploring. The plan was to visit Ipsilu Monastery, drive part of the road towards the petrified forest and have lunch in Sigri. As it turned out, we still had some time left afterwards, so we also drove part of the dirt road between Sigri and Eressos, as far as the old sanatorium near Sigri. We had barely set off when the first new species appeared. As soon as we got out of the car, 2 Eleonora's falcons flew overhead. Everywhere around us we could hear Searle buntings and eastern black-eared wheatears, along with yet another new species, the Kretschmar's bunting. A little further down the road we stopped again, and I quickly heard a black-headed bunting singing. Another new species, and what a beauty it is. We had only just set off again when we spotted a raptor soaring in the distance. It turned out to be a long-legged buzzard. Unfortunately, it was far too distant for a decent photo, but it was already our 4th new species of the day, and we had only just got going. Shortly afterwards, this short-toed snake eagle flew overhead, giving us a much better opportunity for some photos. When we arrived at the monastery, we decided to leave the car at the bottom and follow the circular trail up to this beautiful monastery on foot. It turned out to be a lovely walk, with a few nice bird sightings along the way. We then continued towards the petrified forest. Along the way, I was able to photograph this adorable and surprisingly approachable western rock nuthatch right from the car. At the same time, I was carefully scanning the hillsides in search of an Isabelline wheat ear. This is supposed to be the place to find them, although they're not always easy to pick out. A few times I thought I had one, only to discover it was a female northern wheat ear. But eventually it all came together. There it was, new species number 5 of the day and number 10 of the trip. After that we enjoyed a really nice lunch at the Kalma Café in Sigri. We then drove part of the dirt road from Sigri to Lesvos as far as the so-called Old Sanatorium. Along the way we came across a few more nice species. Day 3. This morning I decided to head out on my own for a change. I started at the river near Scala Eresu, where an eastern olivaceous warbler, a bird you seem to hear everywhere here, soon showed itself. A little further on, near the bridge, I saw a little bittern flying off and a pair of golden orioles in the trees. I then drove to Lesvos and followed part of the dirt road towards Sigri. Before long I came across this beauty, a masked shrike. A new one for me. The scenery is beautiful and I'm really enjoying the birding here. One of the many species I came across was this red-rumped swallow. I also heard an eastern Orphean warbler, which took some finding, but I eventually managed to spot it. No photo, unfortunately, but it was another lifer. After that, I drove back to Ipselu Monastery, hoping to find the Cinereus bunting. Unfortunately, just like the day before, I couldn't find one. Still, there were plenty of other birds around. Day 4. We got up early and headed to Vanne-Romeni Beach and the nearby Vanne-Romeni Fields. This area is well known as a migration hotspot, especially for passerines. Unfortunately, we were a little late in the season. However, some species arrive later and we were lucky enough to catch a few of those. One of them was this rufous-tailed scrub robin, which showed itself almost as soon as we arrived at Vanne-Romeni Beach. So we started the day with a new species right away. Not much later, after I'd photographed this charming spotted flycatcher, we spotted another new species, a lesser grey shrike. It was already clear this was going to be a great day. This masked shrike also gave us some great views, as did the red-backed shrike and the woodchat shrike. In the meantime, we'd been given a tip-off about a good spot for Cinereus bunting near Agra. It was quite a drive, but with a stop at this beautiful waterfall along the way, we eventually reached the site. Waiting to greet us there was this little owl. As soon as I stepped out of the car, I immediately heard the Cinereus bunting singing. Finally! In the rocky landscape it took a bit of searching, but I eventually managed to find it and get a few photos. Super happy! I also heard a rock sparrow and eventually found it perched on a large boulder further up the slope. I'll spare you the lousy record shot I made, but hopefully this lovely eastern black-eared wheat ear makes up for it. How amazing to add another 5 lifers in a single day, bringing my holiday total to 18 new species. Day 5. We moved to a new apartment in Scala Caloni. In the afternoon, we decided to spend some time exploring the local area. Our first stop was Lake Mitochi, which is the place on Lesvos to look for little crake. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find one during this trip, but we did see a little bittern there, a species that is much more common here than it is back home in the Netherlands. Our next stop was Tsigmias, also known as the East River. From the car we had some great views of some bee-eaters, and this time I even managed to capture a bit of video. At a crossing along the river we met a couple of very friendly Danish birders. We ended up having a great chat and, while talking, spotted several interesting birds, including a Balkan yellow wagtail, a local subspecies of our familiar yellow wagtail. Suddenly, an eastern olivaceous warbler started to panic. A moment later, we found out why, when this Ottoman viper was swimming right past us. The next morning, I got up really early and headed straight for a small hidden pool in Scala Colony. It's a good spot for night herons and, if you're lucky, a little crake. There were indeed plenty of night herons around, but no little crake. Still, I had a great opportunity to photograph this beautiful red-rumped swallow. Other birders had given me a tip about a good spot to see a somber tit, so that became my next target. Once I reached the spot, I managed to see it after a bit of searching. And I also came across a Balkan leaf warbler, giving me 2 more lifers. After that, I headed back to the Colony salt pans, which we had already visited briefly on our first day. Here I managed to photograph another swallow collecting nest material, a barn swallow this time. And I was welcomed by this long-legged buzzard. This time it was much closer, making for a better photo opportunity. I also spent some time photographing terns, including this little tern and once again the whiskered tern. Along the way I picked up another new species, a collared pratincoll, as well as another spur-winged lapwing. I wrapped up my visit with this corn bunting, a fitting way to end another enjoyable session at the salt pans. In the afternoon we headed to the north of Lesvos, to Paresma Reservoir, the place to see the great spotted cuckoo. As we walked the final stretch to the reservoir, we were immediately rewarded with 2 great spotted cuckoos flying overhead, before they landed not far from us. What fantastic birds to see! We also saw a few European turtle doves and this juvenile red-backed shrike. Day 7 already. Today we're starting again at Tsignias, the East River, simply because it's such a fantastic spot. Before long we spot a little bittern. We walk towards the salt pans and, out in the meadows, come across this Zitting Cisticola. It's a wonderful area for birding, with the chance of seeing a wide variety of species. Once again, a lesser grey shrike gives us great views, along with a black stork, a middle spotted woodpecker and this juvenile corn bunting, which was posing nicely for the camera. In the afternoon we visit the beautiful town of Molivos, where we come across a starred agama on the castle walls. What a sweet little dragon! Lesbos is a fantastic island, not only for birds but for reptiles as well. We also spot a few more laughing doves, and of course an eastern black-eared wheatear is not to be missed. On the way back, a rosy starling is reported in the Lesvos Birding app group and not far from our apartment. We definitely don't want to miss that one. It's another species that only arrives later in the migration season, and we're lucky that it happens to be here during our stay. Even though the mulberries aren't quite ripe yet, the rosy starlings are happily feasting on them. Day 8! Today we move to the eastern side of the bay, to the town of Polygnitos. On the way we stop at a well-known site for the Kruper's nuthatch. It doesn't take long before we find the tree where they are nesting. That makes it the 25th new species of the trip already. The photos may not be spectacular, but with the birds nesting, I chose to keep my distance and avoid any risk of disturbance. Day 9. Today we're taking a relaxed walk along the Polygnitos salt pans. It's a lovely place to wander around. Besides black-winged stilts and loads of greater flamingos, we also spot curlew sandpipers, little stints, Kentish plovers, common ringed plovers, common terns and little terns. There's also a pier packed with European shags. Back home I'm already lucky if I see just one. The gull you see everywhere here, even up in the mountains, is the yellow-legged gull. But this was the first good photo opportunity. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to spot other gulls on this trip. A little later, I managed to get a record shot of this Dalmatian pelican. It wasn't the best photo, but at least it's one for the records. As we continue our walk through the countryside, it's absolutely full of black-headed buntings. You can never get enough of these beauties, can you? The next morning we head off early to the southern tip of this part of the island, hoping to see some shearwaters. This little fox was waiting for us when we arrived. We also heard a golden oriole singing, plus all the usual suspects. The shearwaters certainly don't disappoint. There are constant streams of Yelkovan shearwaters passing by, with the occasional Scopoli shearwater mixed in, which is again a new species for me. They were flying a long way offshore, but I still managed to get a record shot. Day 11. It's our last day on the island, so we decide to pay one final visit to the Alix wetlands near the Kaloni salt pans. Here a male European bee-eater reminds us of the things we do for love. The rest of the time we're happily birding away. After that we make one last attempt to get a better photo of the little owl. We know a spot where it often hangs out, and once again it doesn't disappoint. From there we take a scenic drive towards Mount Olympus, the highest mountain on Lesvos. Birding is pretty quiet along the way until we come across this Eurasian hoopoe. We get to enjoy watching it for quite a while as it feeds by the roadside. Later that evening I finally managed to spot an olive tree warbler in an olive grove. It's a species that doesn't always show itself very easily, so it feels like a fitting final lifer of the trip. A wonderful way to end an unforgettable birding holiday. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again on the next birding adventure.